we have this week Troy Broussard from MyFusion Solutions is going to be talking to us here about subtle selling techniques with micro-segmentation. Sounds exciting to me, Troy.
Thank you, Matt. All right, so today's webinar, I'm going to show you some sales stats and why sales are so important. I think it's important to realize just how big of an impact this can have, and so we're going to look at some industry statistics a little bit to just kind of set the tone for this. And then I'm going to really focus on how to reframe the way you think about sales, especially if you are not real fond of selling. So let's do a subtle poll here, and if you can just say that yes or no whether you like selling or not. And when I mean selling, I don't mean collecting income from a sales form. I mean on the phone, closing a call, closing a deal. If you like doing that, say yes. And if you don't, say no in a comment, because I really want to hear this. This presentation today, if you like sales, you're going to love it because you're going to learn even more creative ways to get on the phone. And if you like sales, you're probably pretty darn good at it. And so this will be really powerful for you. If you don't like sales, this is going to be even more important for you. And I think that you'll find some creative ways that I approach it that even if you don't like sales, you'll enjoy and you'll be able to feel really congruent and ethical in your selling. And that's really my goal here today. So I'm also going to show you some tactics of exactly how to put this into work to generate more sales calls for you in a way that you'll like. I'm going to kind of skip over this other than I want you to make sure and write down my help at myfusionsolutions.com. If you have any questions, if you want the slide deck after the webinar, anything like that, reach out to me at help at myfusionsolutions.com. I'm not going to go into my history, but you probably recognize my name from either MyFusion Helper or MyFusion Notes, and I've been around in the industry for quite a few years, so that's about all that we can say there for now. All right, let's dive in. The first thing is, why is sales really important? Okay, why is this such an important topic? And, it seems abundantly clear to the most casual observer, as a former teacher of mine used to say, right? But let's kind of dig into the stats for just a second. 50% of the working population works in a small business. And small businesses have generated over 65% of new jobs since 1995. 65%. Just incredible. Now, unfortunately, there's only about half of the small businesses that are still in business in a 5-year period. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they all failed. Maybe they shut down and went on to something different, et cetera. But in general, that 50% failure rate is something that's talked about quite a bit. And, when you look at the average revenue from the typical non-employer small business, and what I mean by a non-employer small business is a small business that doesn't have any employees, so typically a solo entrepreneur business, the leading cause and the leading problem is lack of sales. You can see it in the revenue statistics. They just don't average very high sales, okay? 52% of businesses are home-based businesses. And as I already said, 75% of U.S. businesses are non-employer, solo entrepreneur type businesses. Now, what I want you to think about this for a moment, if the average sales revenue is low on these, look at that stat for a minute. 75% of all U.S. businesses are non-employer businesses. Well, what do you think is the actual percentage of those, businesses that have, any type of advanced sales training or even generic sales training in their business? They're solo entrepreneurs, they're non-employers. So, that percentage is really small. And, if we look at the small hinges that swing big doors, if we want to think of this even globally or in terms of the United States, if we had much better qualified salespeople in our small businesses, imagine what would happen to those rates and those percentages, right? So this is something I'm pretty passionate about. I love sales, and I hope that energy kind of comes through. Now, the one thing that could reverse those stats, and it's really not more leads and it's not more traffic. I know that those are very popular topics, and the reason is we're going to come up to in just a second the reason those topics are so popular. And it's not more Facebook or better Facebook advertising. The one thing is to become better at sales. If you were more effective at sales, your business will grow. Now, at what percentage, I'm not going to get into all that. It doesn't really matter. But the bottom line is become a better salesperson and your business will grow. And so that is really the small hinge that swings the big door of your business. Now, why is marketing automation so popular these days? And I want to give you some clues here. It's not because of the sexy automation part of it. I know that that's what's used to sell a lot, right? Campaign builder and the sex factor of how cool it does this and does that, right? But that's not really why it's so popular. And it's not because of the promise of increased profits either. That's a nice benefit, but it's really not the core reason it's so popular. And it's not because of the efficiency or automation. Again, even though that's a big selling factor, it's not the leading reason why people really love marketing automation. And it's not even because of the allure of making money while you sleep, right? How many of you have seen that ad of, the promise of marketing automation where it's just money's falling from the sky while you're sitting on the beach with a laptop, right? I mean, come on. That's sold in every single marketing automation platform uses that type of advertising, but that's really not the main reason it's popular. And the reason, in my opinion, that marketing automation is so popular in the marketplace is fear. It's fear. Fear is one of the most important emotional triggers that we have that motivates sales, especially when it comes to fear of loss. And when people are fearful of sales, right, then they turn to other solutions. And marketing automation is one of the most powerful, right? Because of those promises, the immediate connection that people are making in their mind is, hey, I don't have to talk to anybody if I can just automate my business, right? And I'm here to tell you that, while you have a certain degree of success with that, the real synergy in just quadrupling your sales and your business is when you take the contrarian approach to that and not only learn how to use marketing automation to make more sales, but learn how to use marketing automation to generate more sales calls. And that's what we're going to talk about here when some of these tactics that I'm going to show you in just a minute, okay? But understand that fear and fear of sales is a big factor. Now, Matt, you've got the chats there. I saw a bunch of comments coming in while I was presenting. Can you tell me what the percentage of those is between people that like sales and don't like sales on the call? I'm just curious.
It looks like about 50-50, but the no's came in pretty quick.
Yeah. And 50-50 is because we're in a marketing and sales environment. If we were in a traditional small business environment, not in the Infusionsoft space today, I would tell you that those numbers would be more like 80-20 against sales, right? And the reason why is this guy right here, right? I mean, how many of you have ever bought a used car and just absolutely drudged the entire process from the used car salesman, pushy and all that, to then getting into the finance department and dealing with the warranty sales guy and the 3-hour closing process that they make you endure, right? And we see it all the time. We see it in late night infomercials. If you've ever had a late night binge fest on Star Wars or something and watched movies late into the night, you'll get hit with all these infomercials, right? The shopping channel is famous for it. The gal that's pushing you with the scarcity countdown timer and only 7 minutes left to buy. We're bombarded with really poor salesmanship, right? And we're bombarded with that, and we're kind of psychologically conditioned to hate it from the beginning. And it's really, not surprising that 50% of you here on the call don't like it. Honestly, the surprising number is that 50% do, given the way the market conditioning is. All right, so there's really only two approaches that you can take. And you can either confront and conquer your fear of selling. And remember, guys, if you love selling, the 50% that you do, trust me, this stuff is going to be even more powerful for you. So don't think that this presentation is only for those that don't like sales, because the tactics I'm going to give you here, you're going to be able to leverage even more effectively since you already love sales, okay? So hang with me for just a minute, just a couple more slides, and we'll be getting into the meat of things here, okay? Now, you can either choose to confront and conquer your fear of selling, or an easier approach is really to simply reframe what selling means to you. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about that, because for those of you that don't really like sales, I want to help you reframe it in a way that you feel totally good about it. And then when you see the techniques that I'm going to show you, I think we can find some ways that you can really enjoy the process and not feel like a salesperson, right? And also get the close, because that's the most important part. Because remember, coffee's for closers, right? We got to have one of those mugs out here somewhere. All right, so confronting and conquering. Now, this is the most powerful approach, but it may take some time, and it's going to take a lot of discipline, and it's also probably going to take some sales training. Okay, so while this can be really effective, it may be harder to do and a longer-term process. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't invest some time in it. If you have a fear of sales, then I really do recommend you get some books, get some training, and spend some time addressing it, because it's the single most important skill set you can develop for doubling and tripling your business. And I can't overstate that. It's the single most important. Getting leads, you know, guys, I got to tell you, this big traffic, big lead necessity is really not true. Again, it's based on the fear angle of being able to close a sale. And so people tend to fall towards lead generation and traffic generation because it's technical, and they can go solve that without having to confront their fear of selling. But from a skill set perspective, the most powerful skill set that you can learn and add into your bag of tricks is the ability to be able to sell. Okay. In my prior business, I did about $2.5 million a year in revenue. And to tell you how small our list is, it will make you laugh, because most of you on the call probably have a bigger list than I had doing that level of revenue. I did that with 2,749 people on my entire list, not the customers. The customers was 979 customers, and yet it was generating $2.5 million in revenue. Okay, so you do not have to have a big list, and if you know how to sell, then that is a skill that you can take no matter what your business is. So, really invest a little time in this. Now, the reframe approach is what I prefer, and I think this is the easier way for people that don't like selling to really kind of shift the gears and do it in a way that makes things natural and easy for you. So you have to define what selling really means to you, and that's the reframe. Okay, we're taught that we what we see is what we repeat. So we think that sales equates to that pushy car salesman. Sales equates to forcing your will on somebody. Sales equates to dominating a conversation. Sales equates to talking somebody into or convincing them of something they need. Okay, that's what we're taught, and we're not taught it from anything other than experience generally, right? But some very poor salespeople will teach you how to do sales in that manner as well. But to me, sales equates to service. And, if you can only write one thing down today, I would write that down, and I would underline it and circle it. Sales equates to service. If you translate that, what I found is that, let's do another quick question. So all of the people that said no, that they don't like selling, let me ask you another question. Just please respond to Matt here, and that is, how many of you really are passionate and creative and enjoy what you offer in your business? Okay, so answer that question and send that in to Matt, because here's what I'm going to tell you. Most people that hate sales are very creative people, and they love what they do. They're very talented. They're very skilled in the service aspect of their business. So if you can reequate sales to just offering service in your mind, instead of saying that you hate sales, say that you love serving your clients. Okay? And service to me means that, if you have something of value, you really have a charter. You really have a mission to put that into practice in as many businesses and as many people as you can possibly do. That is your calling. That is your charter. That's what service is all about. And if you don't have that level of passion about what you're selling, then guess what? That's the problem. It means you're selling something you don't believe in, you don't like, you don't care for, and you'll never do well at selling it. Okay, so really, dig deep here for a minute. If you're not happy with the service that you offer, your sales will always, always suffer. And if you're passionate about the product and the quality of what you deliver and making that quality better, then if all you do is reframe the way you think of sales to be nothing more than just an extension of servicing your clients, then your sales will multiply dramatically. And I'm going to show you how we can use the marketing automation aspects of Infusionsoft to make these triggers where instead of it being a sales call, it's more of a service-based call that leads naturally to more sales. Okay, a very subtle but important distinction. Instead of triggering a sales call, we're going to trigger a service call that comes from first serving our clients and helping them, and that's going to naturally lead to more sales. Okay, so who likes the idea of that? All right, so service. Because what I value most is service, that's the way that I choose to reframe it. Now, maybe you have a different way of reframing it. Maybe for you, you're a social butterfly, and you just enjoy having those conversations with people. That's cool, but remember to keep the end in mind, right? And the end is, you don't want to be on the phone for an hour and a half just having fun chit-chatting and not progressing towards a sale. So try to leverage that social butterfly nature, if you have that, into how it can help you from a business perspective and not hinder you, right? So I define sales to equate to service. I define my sales process around service. And because of that, sales come naturally. Now, I say this, not to brag, but just as an illustration, right? If you look at our app in the marketplace, My Fusion Helper, we've jumped to the top 3 or 4 apps in the entire marketplace of Infusionsoft in just a little over a year. And we did that with, about 106 or 107 reviews in a year, something that no other app has ever done inside of Infusionsoft. And we did that in our first year. And the way we did it was not through marketing. It was through service and support. We actually have only spent maybe $1,500 or so all year in marketing. You won't see a lot of Facebook stuff from us. We don't spend a lot of time on that. But what we do focus, our efforts are in service and support of our clients. And so our help desk is actually our biggest lead generation that we do, okay? And it comes from the way you have that subtle mindset of focusing on service first. Okay. Now, some interesting constructs here when you're trying to reframe and if you're having difficulty in kind of making that mental shift from sales to service, learn to just kind of shift your perspective. Take a look from a different angle at the same problem. Okay, just shift it, and that's reframing. Now, these come from this article that I kind of skipped over here. If you didn't get this link, write it down, myfood.me/fear of selling. That will redirect you to an article for those of you that don't like selling about some of these kind of guides and helpful tips to kind of make this transition, okay? So myfood.me/fear of selling. All right. So these couple of tips come from that article. Now, shifting your perspective is what I've called reframing, and that's really the same construct here. But another one is find enthusiasm for what you offer. It's another one of the tips. Well, guess what? This should be really friggin' easy. And if it's not, then you need to get into a different business or offer something different. And I can't be more blunt than that. But if you don't have enthusiasm in what you're selling, then that's the problem, right? And if you have to force and contrive enthusiasm, then it means you really just aren't aligned with what you're doing. And you're probably never going to have great success at it. Even working really, really hard at it, you're always going to be counterintuitive and kind of sabotaging your own efforts because the fundamental core, you don't really like what you do. Okay, so just keeping it real, not trying to be critical here, but you got to have enthusiasm for what it is you do. Now, the last one that they mentioned, and I really can't stress this enough, is stay focused on your desired outcome. So when you get on the service calls that we're going to generate here, make sure that you remember that, yes, the purpose at first is to reach out and to support and to serve your client, but don't lose sight of the desired goal of closing more sales. right? Don't lose sight of that, because if you keep that as your primary goal, you'll still find subtle ways to, to mention things that you're doing, mention other services that you have that could help, etc., in that service call. Okay, but if you don't kind of set that as your objective and you don't write a little Post-it note and jot those things down before you get on the call, then you're likely to kind of duck and cover and duck and run from that. Okay, and then that's going to sabotage your efforts. So remember to always stay focused on your desired outcome. All right, so let's take a look at how to set up Infusionsoft and really kind of let it help you serve your clients more. And in parentheses, I put sell more, right? Because that's really what we want to do. All right, so one of them is really cool, and I used to do a hack with this for a long time, for years, before Infusionsoft introduced this quote status capability. Is I used to do some special tracking in the email to know if the email was open and to know if they clicked on the link to see the invoice. Now, fortunately, you can just use this quote status. How many people on the call, just respond yes, please, if you have already used or actively used quotes in your business with Infusionsoft and use the automation around them. So just say yes if you do. And Matt, kind of let me know how many people are there, because I have a feeling it's a fairly small percentage, because this is a fairly new procedure, and a lot of people, I think, are not necessarily real aware of it. Okay, so I saw a few yeses, but not very many. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, it's about 10% so far.
Okay, so that's kind of what I expected. So here's what's really cool. Now, of all these statuses, the only one that I really use is the viewed status. That's the only one I really care about. The declined, I don't even want to hear about those. If they're so, against the service, they have to forcefully decline. Most people just politely ignore it, right? But every now and then you get a guy that's just definitive about declining your service, and I just find that amusing. But I don't want to be notified about that, because I don't need the negative energy of that. So I only focus on one thing. I don't really worry too much about the accepted, although those can be useful with that if you're doing automation off of that. But what I typically will do is worry about the viewed status, okay? And, when we do this, I call it, using quotes smartly, right? I'll use that viewed status to intelligently trigger a follow-up call. But here's the thing. Okay, so remember the topic is subtle sales, right? So what you don't want to do is get on the phone and say, "Hi, John, I saw you just clicked on my link to watch the proposal video that I sent you, and da-da-da-da-da, and I saw you did that 12 minutes ago, and you've yet to buy, so..." You don't want to come off as that guy, right? You don't want to be the stalker. You don't want them to feel like they can't, casually view something without you, like, being right on their case, right? So you want to be really, really subtle. And what you really want to do, you've achieved this properly, okay? I always like to set kind of the end in mind, right? How do you know that your script worked? Your script worked when the client tells you on the call, it's just like this is meant to be. I was just thinking about this quote, and you know what? Let's do it. When they tell you and they say those magical words like it felt like it's meant to be, that phrase, if you are doing the script properly, you'll hear that in about a third to a half of the people that you close on sales. Okay, so that is the litmus test. And the reason it will work that way is if you do it carefully and subtly with your script, you'll do something like this. First of all, timing is really important, okay? So you want to reach out to them about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, and just play with it. Your own testing will vary. You don't want to wait. I don't recommend waiting more than a half an hour, and I don't recommend doing it in less than 20 minutes. So it's kind of a narrow window. And the reason for that is you want to give them ample time to go through your proposal, especially if it's a long, complex proposal, then you may want to extend these times a bit, okay? So you want to give them the chance to purchase first. But if they haven't purchased and, 25, 27 minutes later, trigger a notification to you. And I personally use Slack for those notifications. Now, I do that through our MyFusion Helper. As an ICP, you're entitled to a free account on that. So as long as you're using it in your own business and to demo it to your clients and such. So if you don't have it and want to try it out, you can reach out to the help desk, okay? But I use Slack because then no matter where I am, I move around a lot, I'm out and about a lot, so I'll get that Slack notification right onto my phone, and I can just click on it and call the person, right? And what I do is I have it notify me about 27 minutes after, and I'll usually do something really subtle in my scripting. So I'll say something like, hey, John, Troy here. How you doing? Well, cool. Hey, I'm kind of out and about, and I had a tickler on my phone that I was supposed to reach out to you about that proposal I sent a few days ago, and just call and follow up and see if you had a chance to look it over, if you had any questions, anything I could help you out with. Okay, so I do it in a way that makes it feel random. Okay, and you can play with the scripting of that to whatever feels natural to you. But what you don't want to do is reference the fact that they just viewed your quote. Okay, you want it to come and feel random. When you do that, it really strikes up some great conversations, and it puts them at ease, and it naturally transitions into a discussion about the proposal and everything else. But you frame it as you're just following up, and you want to make sure and address any questions or concerns they have. And the trick is that you're doing it right at the moment that they just got through looking at your proposal, so it's fresh in their mind. Okay? All right, so I'm going to move through these pretty quickly because I've got about 15 minutes here left, and I've got about 7 of these that I want to show you, but we're doing fine for time. So I'm going to move kind of quick, though, because I want to leave some time for questions at the end. Another one is web page automation. Okay, this is brand new with Infusionsoft, and I'm going to mention it as well. We also have a page triggers in MyFusion Helper. I tend to use the page triggers more, and I'm not sure why, but I think there's maybe some of the kinks are still working out on the page automation. Sometimes it doesn't fire for me right now, and so I don't know. I'm still kind of working through ICP support on that to figure out. But I love the feature, and I think that it'll continue to get refined and improved. But the web page automation, if you haven't looked at this, is something that can be very powerfully used to trigger up these conversations as well. So you put a little piece of JavaScript on your page, and then when somebody hits that page, it's going to cookie them, and then when they return back, etc. Anytime they send an email, they're going to be cookied. And then when they trigger that page view, it's going to trigger an automation in Infusionsoft that will do the same basic thing as like tell you that they viewed a quote, right? It'll give you a notification. Now, you can use this on your high-ticket offers and sales pages so that when somebody visits that, you can see that they just visited, and you can do the same kind of very similar script that I just did of just a random follow-up. Another great one, a script angle that you can take on this is instead of a random follow-up, you can, if they're a customer, you can reference a previous product that they purchased and just say, you're calling about their experience with XYZ product and you just wanted to know how that went. And then you can naturally transition that conversation into, is there anything else that you're looking to do that I can help you with? Knowing that they just got through looking at your coaching or your mentoring page or your book a consult page. Okay. Do you see how this just subtle context and timeliness of communication can be a big boost in your enhancing of your sales process? All right. I hope that this makes sense to you. All right. Now the keys to making it all work are making it feel coincidental that you called. You want to use what I like to call a disarming excuse for the call. And when I say a disarming excuse, here's what I mean. If you had a internet service problem with your cable at your house, and you called the cable company, and you complained that your cable is out, and they call you back. If they call you back and do a sales call, you're going to be ticked off, and you're like, "What are you calling me? I don't take sales solicitations. I'm in the middle of something. I'll talk to you later. Bye." Right? That's my typical response to a sales call. However, if they use a disarming excuse first, and they say, "Hey, I was calling to follow up with your issue you're having the other day where you had some problems with your cable modem," and they use that to seed the conversation. Okay, now they're calling from a different perspective. Okay, so a disarming excuse allows the call to feel coincidental, and it allows it to be framed in a manner of service. Okay, and you start off the conversation that way, but you can then transfer the conversation into an extension of services that you can offer them. But you have to start from that position of serving and helping. And here's the thing, you have to be sincere and genuine in your offer to help. Now, I practice what I preach. I'm going to show you an example of exactly the kind of results that it generates. But if you're not genuine in this, and if you're not really trying to sincerely help them, then you know what? This is just manipulative like anything else. Okay? But if you're sincere and genuine in your offer to help, then there's nothing manipulative about what you're doing. All you're doing is disarming their immediate response and just putting the conversation in a casual tone. Okay? So keep the end in mind. Seed your intended outcome before you make the call. Now, if you're not good at sales, write down a couple of bullet points on a Post-it note before you call so that you remember to kind of just transition to that outcome. Okay? And if it doesn't come up naturally in the call, that's fine. Like, you know what? I don't force it. If I get on a call with somebody and it's not naturally going to where they're even open for suggestions, then I do not force it whatsoever. I just make it a position of serving and helping them. And you know what? It's just count it like planting seeds. Eventually, the corn's going to come into harvest, okay? So if a few of them, you just provide value and get nothing out of it, that's okay. If you keep practicing this technique, it's going to result in more sales. So number 3 is customer cancellations. Believe it or not, this is a very good sales opportunity. If you're doing things right in your business, if they cancel one service, they may very well and likely be willing to try another service. Okay? Don't assume and don't let your ego get in the way that a cancellation is an insult to you or to your service or anything else. They may be very happy with you personally. It's just that the particular service they're on or the particular time right now, never presume to know what that person is going through. They may have a brother that just got diagnosed with cancer and you don't know, and that extra $500 a month they're paying you is just not cutting it right now. But you know what? If you reach out when they cancel and have a real conversation to help them, then imagine what the impact can be. I had an example, a real quick story while I was flying on a plane, and I generally don't like flying commercial. It's just, it's not a fun experience for me. And I always sit on the aisle, and I had this, when I got onto the plane, I just said, you know what, I am going to have a perfect experience on this flight, no matter what the way the stewardess does, no matter what the person next to me does. I'm refusing to allow it to make this a bad flight for me. I'm just going to enjoy the flight and relax. And so I really set that intention when I got on the plane. I sat down, I'm on the aisle, I had 2 people to the inner and the window seat, and they got up on a 3-hour flight, I kid you not, 17 times on a 3-hour flight. 17 times. And I didn't roll my eyes once. I didn't huff and puff once. I was really intently focused on having a good trip. And I just smiled every time they asked to get up and politely got up and let them out. And as we were landing, and right before we started taxiing around, the young lady on my left, who was in her probably 30s, she said to me, and she reached over and tapped me on the shoulder, and she says, I just can't let you know how much it means to me, how polite and courteous you were to us on this trip. My mom is going through cancer right now, and she's got this bladder problem, and she can only get a few minutes before she has to run to the bathroom. And I just felt so bad that we had to keep, inconveniencing you to get up. And so anyway, I don't want to go down the point on this story, but just realize that you never know what somebody is going through. So when a customer cancels, don't take it personal. Take it as an opportunity to service them on a different level. And you know what? That other level may be an upsell. It may be that they're canceling because the service they have with you now isn't adequate. It's not that it's a bad service. It's that they need more. Okay, so don't presume the intentions of your clients. You can save relationships, you can create relationships, and worst case is you can learn why they're canceling and improve your product. Now, I told you I practice what I preach. If you want to reference this whole article that was written on me, you can see it at myfoo.me/cancel. I just put those links in there so you don't have to type out a big long URL. So that'll just help you. But this lady, Carrie, she said, how to transform a disengaged subscriber into an evangelist of your business in just 60 minutes. And, she said, I emailed support and canceled. I quickly received a reply saying no problem, but offering me a one-on-one call with the CEO based in the U.S. This got me really curious. A CEO taking the time out of his Christmas break to call a subscriber, only paying $40 a month, and about to leave. I decided to take him up on the offer. We got on the phone, and I was flabbergasted. He spent over an hour giving me fantastic value and advice on automating and scaling my business, also promising to send me a copy of his new book. Never at any time did he ask me to stay as a subscriber, just provided me with pure value and insider insights. As you might have guessed, I decided to do a U-turn and try and make the subscription work for me. They've retained me as a customer. Okay, and then she said she had some big takeaways: communication from support to the CEO, me, the way that we didn't take the no as the final answer, but looked for options to encourage, and the way they provided massive value. Now, remember what I said, that I don't have any expectations when I do this? It's really important that you not have an expectation. When I got on the phone with Carrie, within 3 minutes, I had summed up that she was not going to stay with us regardless. The way her tone was, the way her attitude was, the way her approach was, I didn't look at it as an opportunity to save the client. I was already over that. But I did look at it as something that I could help her. And so I just disengaged from the concept of converting her to staying or buying something else or anything else, and I just focused on planting the seed and providing some value. And it turned out into a huge, thing. And now she's not only bought several different products, but she's become an evangelist for us. Like, she's referred us numerous times. Okay, so this stuff is powerful, and it's simple, yes. It's old school, yes. Subtle selling is an old school concept, but I can tell you it is very powerful if you put it into place. All right. Next is after booking a consult. If someone comes up with a consult and they don't buy, use that as a disarming excuse to stay in the conversation with them, get their address, and send them something to follow up. Okay? I'm going to move real quick here, guys. I apologize, but I can't be late on this call. So after booking consultations, okay, things you can do. You can send a handwritten thank you card. Don't be lazy. No metered postage, no stickers or labels, no printing it on your computer. Actual handwritten, hand address, signed card to everybody. Okay, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. Add a phone number to your opt-in. Okay, sure, the stats are showing that if you follow up with your leads within 5 minutes, you have a 9 times higher likelihood of converting them. And that follow-up isn't a pushy sales call. It's just meeting them, making contact, asking how you can help them. If you put your phone number on the form, just make it optional. And if they provide it, send a real-time Slack notification. And even if you can't call all of them, just call the ones you can, right? Put this into place, put this into practice. It will absolutely, work for you. Yeah, thanks, Shannon. I do it. Send a thank you card, okay? And, I'm not going to go into this, but literally send a thank you card over a $7 tripwire offer and just be amazed at the kind of trust and rapport and customer relationship that this builds, right? It's really, really powerful. Another thing you can do is after somebody spends XXX amount with you, right? So after maybe they spend $500 with you, use that as a trigger to generate a sales call, a direct mail piece, a handwritten letter, or maybe even a personal video message. Okay, I do this all the time. Now, this works with MyFusion Helper's customer lifetime value helper, so that you can see when that value increases over a certain threshold and then just automatically trigger it. But you can also do it just by manually doing reports with the lifetime customer value reports. All right, so last minute thoughts here. I'm going to, just a real quick example, but my daughter, 11-year-old daughter, door dinged a guy in a parking lot the other day. And I wrote a handwritten note and left him my phone number and offered to pay him $200 and said, call me and I'll take care of things. And the reason I'm pointing this out is for this. The lesson is this. If you want to really stand out in your business today, just do what you would have done when you were a kid to not get chewed out by your grandmother. Seriously. Like, if you will just conduct yourself as if your grandmother was standing there watching you, you're going to stand out from the crowd. You don't have to be a hero. Like, all I did was what my grandmother would have taught me to do. I dinged the guy's door, pay for it. That's my fault. It's my responsibility. Own up for it. It's not heroic. It's just common courtesy. But nobody does it today. Okay? And so this is a picture of my grandmother who passed away, and this is my litmus test. What would I do if Nana was watching me right now, right? When I treat a customer, when I have that interaction. And, this was a picture that I took, and it kind of breaks me up to even talk about it. But the day that she died, I went through her house and took about 300 photos. And here was just a picture of her slippers sitting beside the couch that she left. And it just... I put this picture here because this one little picture is an emotional trigger for me to always treat people the way I would treat them if my grandmother was sitting right behind me. And I think if you do that, if you just do that one thing, then it'll have a huge impact for you, okay? So I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. If you have questions, and I know I rushed it here a little bit at the end, if you'd like a copy of the slides, send me an email to help@myfusionsolutions.com, and I'll be happy to do that. If you'd like a copy of the book, go to get.ismastery.com. And if you are interested in an alternative to the shopping cart experience with Infusionsoft and want something designed to work with Infusionsoft from the ground up, then go opt in for simplecart.io and take a look, and we'll let you know when it's coming out in a couple of weeks. And I hope to see you all at ICON. So, Matt, I'm sorry I'm going to have to just run, my friend, but I hope this was good for you guys, and I hope you guys got a lot out of it.
Yeah, this is awesome, Troy, and I know you got to run, so thank you so much. And yeah, guys, I want to encourage you to take what you've seen here today with what Troy's presented, and take just one thing, right, and go and implement it today, right, or this week, right? Take one of these things, go implement it, and start doing what you would do if Nana was watching. Right, I love that, Troy. I'm gonna steal that for sure. But yeah, this is great stuff, you guys. It's simple, subtle things that will really have a huge impact on your sales. And if you don't believe it, well, Troy's had a great deal of success in his own business. So the proof is in the pudding, as they say. But yeah, guys, go take at least one of these ideas. Go implement it this week and start making a difference in your own business. And what's great is, as Troy was kind of walking us through some of these different tactics, using the automation to generate or initiate follow-up, right? How great is it for you to be able to take that, and then once you have a prospect becomes a customer or a client with you, you take that same technique and go, hey, remember how I called you that afternoon after you looked at my my quote or went to my sales page? Yeah, that was automation. You can kind of show them the man behind the curtain a little bit there, right? And say, well, we're going to do that for you, right? And just incredible how you can continue to pass along that value. So awesome stuff from Troy. Hope you have a wonderful week, a beautiful weekend, and best wishes to all of you. Thanks so much.